And with that, I'd like to welcome to the stage Janis Ian and Felice Cohen. Thank you.
This isn't my first time interviewing you, and you probably don't remember, but back in 2004, you did back-to-back shows at Joe's Pub, and I went backstage and I interviewed you, and you were smoking a cigarette. It was about midnight, and you were eating a steak that looked twice the size of you. And I said, are you sure you should be smoking and eating a steak this late? And you looked at me like, I'm a rock star. What's wrong with you?
That was actually the look of an artist who is normally starving after a show because we don't eat before the show. So after the show is the only time you have to get protein. And apparently cigarettes. I didn't realize I was still smoking.
Yeah.
What a wanker.
Yeah, you're not still smoking. You quit.
I'm not, no, I haven't smoked in years. Anything.
Okay.
No. I'm allergic to weeds, so it became a problem.
And now there's edibles, so lucky you. So Janis, you've been described as many things: a child prodigy, a singer, a songwriter, an LGBT icon, a Grammy winner, an author, a poet. How do you define yourself?
It's on the tip of my tongue to say short and just add it to that. I define myself as an artist. That's really the only thing that I can claim. I mean, most of the rest is just, I was born gay. I was born female, I was born an American, I was born a Jew. Those are things that I had no say in, but I had a big say in whether I would really become an artist. So that's the only one that I can.
I think we're twins, but my parents are here, they can probably confirm. Since many of you just watched the new documentary today on Janis's life, in Silence, which is the name of a song in your album, right? It was great. Whose idea was it to make the documentary?
So the first time I got asked to make a documentary in my life, I was 16. And I was smart enough to turn that down. And over the years, every time there's kind of a bump in my being, I don't know what you call it, semi-famous, people come and ask, and I had been asked about a year before I met Varda Barkar, the director, and I had signed a contract on this gentleman's word of what it would be, and then overnight it changed, and everything changed, and I called my lawyer, as you do if you meet, and I said, can't do this, and he said, have to wait. So I waited out the contract, and then Varda called about a week after, and she said, I'd like to do a documentary of my life, of your life. And I said, not my life, no. And she said, I'll come to you. And it was right at the start of COVID. And I said, you absolutely will not come to me. And she said, no, I'll wear a hazmat suit. And I said, you're not getting within 30 feet of me. And she said, well, can we at least talk? So we talked. And she had a vision of what it could be that was very aligned with my own thought of how I wanted to, go out, however you put it politely, be remembered. My legacy. Thank you. And I wanted the film, whoever made it, to be more about the times and the times the songs came out of, rather than just how wonderful I am, or how tragically wonderful my life is, or how fabulously I overcame so many obstacles. I really wanted it to be about what I grew up with, the civil rights movement, the women's movement, all of these different movements converging. And she made a 20-minute mini documentary of her idea to show us. I really liked her previous work. So I said, okay, and after that, really, Felice, my entire contribution to the film was to be where I was told to be, and to do one interview with her, one interview with James Reed, and to give her all the photos I had. That was it. Everything else is Varda. Yeah. I thought she did a great job.
She did a wonderful job. And who came up with the title for it?
Well, it was originally called something about the song, and we were literally a week away from her finished cut. And I said, that's a terrible title. Plus, you know, it's uncomfortable telling a filmmaker what to do because she's a documentarian. And to me, with a documentarian, you don't get in their way. And I didn't want it to be me telling her what to do. The only thing that I reserved was the right to ask for a factual correction if something was incorrect. And there was only one. There was just a date discrepancy. But we were talking about the title, and I said, that's just a boring title. Isn't there something else we could do that's got some strength to it? And I said, like Breaking Silence. Breaking Silence is a good title. And she went, oh, God, that's great. And I went, okay, thank you very much. Send me $100,000, you got it. That's how it's.
And how did you feel watching it when it was done?
Weird. I mean, how do you know, it's kind of like, you know that one shot of yourself when you're a kid that your parents have that they trot out the minute they realize you're with a serious date? The one where you're like naked in the pool and you're 3, or something horrible like that. And it sort of felt like that. It was very, I saw a rough cut in Ireland. I saw a very rough cut just to make sure the songs were listed correctly. But I didn't pay much attention to it because I knew it was a very rough cut. Saw a rough cut in Ireland. That was strange because people were looking at me to see how I was reacting. Then I saw a final cut at Berea when we did the opening of my archives. And again, people were looking at me to see my reaction, so I couldn't really concentrate. The first time I really saw it was the night it premiered on American Masters. And I was staying in a hotel on the road, and I got to watch it in my hotel room alone. And it was pretty surreal. Like, you know, I kind of felt like Zelig. I mean, always at the place where stuff was happening, through no fault of my own, just with the zeitgeist.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it does follow the times, and your songs follow the times. It's really been remarkable. Were there any scenes that were difficult to revisit or watch?
No, there were scenes that surprised me. Kai Fleming, who we did not part well, and it was very much not amicable, in part because she wasn't out. And that made it very difficult to talk about it. But then when Kai very frontally described what had happened and took responsibility, Pat, my wife, and I were just sitting there going, okay, then that's a different person, and here we are, friends again. So stuff like that was really great. You know, seeing people like Brooks Arthur and Artie Butler talk about me, because you don't really know what people think. And sometimes they tell you, but most of the time they don't, especially if you're in the studio, the clock is running, the time is going, you're very conscious of, you know, spending money. So you don't get to be told how cool you are. And so that part was really amazing to me. I wished that my first producer, Shadow, had been alive to be interviewed because he was so articulate, and he's the one who sent me to the studio with those guys with Society's Child.
Yeah, he went to bat for you.
He did.
There was a scene when Billy Joel opens for you in a concert, and I know it wasn't your greatest show, but when we spoke a couple weeks ago, you said there was more behind that story that wasn't in the film.
Yeah, there's a big backstory to that. So, Billy is brilliant, and we both made a choice, and I remember clearly when we both made that choice. Billy decided he wanted to be a great performer, and I decided I wanted to be a great songwriter. And that's a real choice at some point in your career, if you're having the kind of career we did. And Billy and I opened for each other and closed for each other for a couple of years. And he was always wonderful to work with. What happened that night was that I put in a really bad show. I put in a show without concentration, when I should have been focused on the audience and I should have been focused on my work. I put in a low energy show when I should have saved my energy. The backstory is that we had flown in from Japan the day before, completely jet lagged, and unbeknownst to me, my entire band were on coke. I'm allergic to coke, right? So I don't know anything about it. But my band were so in it that they had sent a friend home early with $500 to buy coke and instructions to buy it on Friday afternoon and put it in a safe deposit box so nobody could touch it until they got home. I didn't know that. So I'm in the middle of this show, and I suddenly hear coming from behind me, pardon my language, "I hate this fucking song!" I'm playing my little guitar, I'm singing my little song, and I'm thinking, that was weird. And I hear it again. And then comes a song where all the band members had open mics to sing. And out there into the audience at Universal Amphitheater, to all 5,000 people, I hear, "I hate this fucking song. I'm never playing this fucking song again." And I watch my sound person frantically turning dials, trying to figure out who was talking, right? I turn around and I see the drummer is hitting the bass player with his sticks. And I realized there had been an open bar backstage. You never have an open bar backstage before the show. You always open it after the show, because Stewie Woods, my bass player, had taken great advantage of this open bar. That was mid-show. We finished the show with this monologue going on behind me. And when I finally walked off stage, my drummer and manager were sitting on Stewie, who was still yelling, "I hate this fucking song." So that was the backstory. I was a little distracted. But it's no excuse.
Right.
And when I said in the film, I think, I swore to myself I would never, ever be unprepared again, and I would never turn in a bad show. Because that's my job. You know, people pay money to see someone like me talk, or sing, or play, and they have babysitters, or they drive a long distance. They give their time for us to be at our best. So that's really the job. And after that night, I understood in a very different way what I had signed up for.
Do you remember which song it was?
It was all of them, from the middle of the show on. Every single song, I had the entire discussion going on behind my back. Yes. Nowadays, I probably would have just handed him my mic and said, "Tell us how you feel."
Right. And how does one know if they're allergic to Coke?
By trying it, and yeah, so I was 16, and I wanted to try Coke for a long time because I thought it would make me more energetic, like I need that. And Jimi Hendrix, I was in the studio with him in LA, and I begged him to let me try some. And so he let me try. I had like a line, blew it all over the table and stuff, as you do. And then my heart started, and I started to feel faint, and so I fell. And Jimmy's like, "Girl, you were so white." and we were terrified because if we called an ambulance, they would find out what we'd been doing. Right? And those were the days when people were really looking to bust people like us. But I found out that day, and then later on at the dentist when they gave me Novocaine, and I had the same reaction that I can't do anything with uppers in it.
Okay.
Yeah, not even good coffee. It's just a serious drag.
Horrible. You know, many people when they're young are told maybe from someone, you can't sing, you can't draw, and we go the rest of our lives thinking, well, I can't sing, I can't draw. Your 6th grade music teacher told you to mouth the words.
Mrs. Rose, yes.
Mrs. Rose. So,
at Music and Art, they put me in the back of the choir and told me to mouth the words.
so what made you not believe them, or did you not care, or?
So first of all, I thought most of my teachers were idiots. And, I mean, unfortunately for me, I did not have great teachers until Stella Adler in my 30s. But also, I had gone to New York one day with my little songs and my guitar, my dad's guitar, and I had sung 3 or 4 songs for Harold Leventhal, who managed Pete Seeger, and I had sung them for Jack Holzman, who ran Electra Records, which was primo then for folk singers. He had Judy Collins. And one of them told me that I would be a great singer, but I would never be a writer. And the other one handed me a stack of records and said, "You will be a great writer, but you don't know how to sing." And I remember, because I was 13, I think, and I remember I went home and I thought, these people have no idea what they're talking about. Why should I listen to any of them? So I went ahead and did what I do. And I was not a good singer. I mean, if you listen to my early records, I'm not a good singer. I'm a good phraser. But I don't have control of my voice yet. I didn't have my voice as it is now until my early 20s. I worked hard on that voice. That sounds funny, doesn't it? I really did. Because I think somebody like Baez is born with a natural gift. That voice, just astonishing. Chris Williamson, Changer the Change, astonishing voice. George Jones, astonishing voice. But those of us who are not born with astonishing voices, Billie Holiday, myself, we have to learn to be singers. And I think at the end, then, we become much better singers because we pay attention in a different way. It's like not being really pretty. You know, if you're not pretty, you're not tall, and you're not skinny, and you're not blonde, and you don't fit the American whatever, then you learn to look like you look and be fierce about it.
Do you think you wrote songs in those keys that went with your voice? Or did you try it?
Oh yeah, I mean that's the luxury of being your own songwriter. Yeah, you write for your own voice. But when I'm writing for other people, like Nancy Griffith called me one day and said she wanted a Janis Ian folk song. And I called my friend Sean Besner because I owed him a writing appointment and said, I have this idea for a song called This Old Town that starts, this old town should have gone down in 1929. And John came over and we wrote it. We wrote it for Nancy's voice. That's kind of a cool thing in Nashville, you know, you learn the voices of people you're writing for and what their capabilities are. Like Rex Harrison, if you watch My Fair Lady, he's got one octave, that's it. So everything he sings that they wrote for him is within that octave, and it's not even sung. I know, cool stuff.
Yeah, I love this behind the scenes stuff. So a few years after 6th grade, you wrote Society's Child, and with that song, they wanted you to change the word black. And you said...
That wasn't black, they wanted me to change the word nigger.
Oh.
Excuse me, I don't mean to offend anybody who's triggered by that word, but it is a word, and I think it's important that we say those words out loud when it's in context, because that way we defang the tiger. I cannot speak as a black person, clearly, but for me as a writer, it's important to use words correctly in context.
So they wanted you to change it, and you said you'd use the word black instead.
No, they wanted me to, oh no, you're right, they wanted me to change the word black. Later on, in the film, there's a section in the film where an audience is screaming nigger lover at me. And Varda originally had nigger lover, beat, 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 along with my words, and PBS couldn't do that. So we went nigger lover, beat, beat, beat. The word is still in there.
Okay. I know, well, when
That
the
was
song...
confusing, wasn't it? I'm 74, you know it happens.
It's okay. It's okay. We've talked about menopause and stuff. We're all good.
Yeah.
We both have those
To talk for
moments.
years.
So 22 labels at the beginning refused to publish it. Radios wouldn't play it. But you stuck with your guns. And again, you were so young.
Well, but it wasn't me. That was really Shadow.
He pushed for you.
That was back in the good old days when the music industry was run by the mafia. And in all seriousness, it was a kinder, gentler music industry. You knew exactly where you stood. You knew what would happen if you did X, and they did X. Shadow and his company had a fair amount of power because they owned the jukeboxes. And jukeboxes were huge. That was where the money was. The hidden money, anyway. And they owned a lot of the radio disc jockeys. But they couldn't get anybody to go with it from the record label end. 22 companies. That was all the companies there were in the country. And they all turned it down, and then Verve Forecast was formed by MGM, we found out later, as a tax loss. So they signed up everybody in Greenwich Village that they figured didn't have a hope in hell of having a hit. They signed Laura Nyro, Richie Havens, Velvet Underground, me, Dave Van Ronk. I mean, they figured all of us would not endure. Be one album and they'd lose money. They could use it as a write-off. But that's also why they put it out 3 times, because Jerry Schumbaum was the head of the label, and I don't think he was in on that part. He just believed in the records. And so he released it 3 times with full promotion money, which is astonishing. I mean, nowadays, you basically have 5 days to 2 weeks to have a hit, and that's it. You're gone. In those days, you had maybe 3 or 4 weeks. But he put it out in August, then he put it out again in the fall, then he put it out again a 3rd time after the Leonard Bernstein special.
Which was a big boost to you.
Well, he called the radio stations cowards, so that helped me.
What was that like? He dedicated the entire show to you.
It was pretty cool. My grandparents were like, okay, if you're making money now, could you please go to college? And I kept saying, no, I'm going to be a singer-songwriter. And Leonard Bernstein said that I was good, therefore, that was okay. That was a career track.
That was good. I know you left school in 10th grade. You said you turned 16 and just walked out the door. And your education was in musical venues in the village. Artists took you under their wings, and also you were a voracious reader. Do you remember some of those early artists who helped you? What did they help you
Oh,
with?
sure. I mean, Odetta taught me to put on makeup. And she told me a great thing. She said, always remember, they work for you. You do not work for them. That's very profound in my business, because you are taught that everybody is above you and to always say yes to everything, because somebody else is at your heels waiting for that opportunity. So to hear from Odetta when I was 16 that I had to remember that those people were making a living off me, and if I stopped, that stopped. That was profound. Dave Van Ronk offered to take my virginity, I'm going to put it politely. And he was so sweet about it, I almost wish I had done it. Richie Havens, just showing guitar licks with the right hand, what a right hand could do, because his left hands didn't move that much. His left hands, yeah. He played like he had two left hands. I don't know, and people were very kind to me. I think I was sort of the mascot, I was 15, racing around the village with this record, and taking a lot of heat for it. People like Baez really stood up for me. Barbara Dane stood up for me. Ronnie Gilbert, the Weavers, all those folks stood up for me. I was very fortunate. It's, in general, I find, a very generous group of people, especially folk singers. Once you move into that folk singer-songwriter group, unless they turn on you, they're really nice.
Did that happen? Did any turn on you?
Oh yeah, there was a lot of resentment from some people that I had a hit record, once it became a hit, that I was making a lot of money for those days, and compared to most folk singers. There was a lot of resentment. It kept me off of the Newport Folk Festival for a year and a half. I have a wonderful letter in my archives from Pete Seeger apologizing and saying that I should have been on the previous year. I know who voted against me, so I've always voted against them. But
Their initials of what?
It was a long time ago, and the way I feel about it now, things happen when they're supposed to. I probably shouldn't have been on the year before, because I might have gotten more famous in a wrong way. And there's a lot about being semi-famous that I really like, as opposed to being famous and opening your hotel door and there's 8 people there waiting for you. That's another world.
Yeah, I hear you. You're an amazing writer, and I know you love to read, and you've got lots of different genres you like to read in, but were there any books that really influenced you when you were younger, poetry?
Oh, Madeline Nangle, and both were young, and then A Wrinkle in Time. There's a book called The Treasury of Jewish Folklore by Nathan Osterdahl that has wonderful stories in it. I mean, never mind what religion you are, just the stories, the morals and things like that, ethics. Madeline was a huge influence on me. I think A Wrinkle in Time, like Stella Adler, gave me a framework for what I felt about the battle between, to simplify it, good and evil. That there's the darkness and there's the light, and that at various times in your life, you have the choice. Will you move toward the light? Will you move toward the dark? And the dark is very enticing sometimes, because that's where the illusion of power is. Like, yelling makes you feel powerful, but it's not really power. So I think that book really influenced me. Later on, when I read about Rimbaud, there's a wonderful fictional biography of him called A Day on Fire that was a gigantic influence on my writing, because he talked about words and letters in ways I had never thought. Ezra Pound. There's just a lot of books. Science fiction writers, a lot of science fiction writers. Ray Bradbury, big hero of mine. Asimov. Clark a little bit less. And then when I was in my 20s, John Farley came out with The Persistence of Vision, which is a story about a man who is walking along and he stumbles over a fence and begins walking, and he is in not a camp, but a collective, if you will, of people who were born without hearing, without sight, without the ability to speak. And I read that, and that changed the way that I looked at everything. Because all of a sudden it was what is left when all of those are taken away. The things that I take for granted in communication. What is left after that? So that had a profound effect on me.
Did it affect some of your songs after that, how you wrote them? Or?
I don't know if it affected my writing so much as when I would perform, I would try very hard to have a signer, especially at festivals. I got interested in, there was a book I think in the 70s or 80s called Train Goes Sorry. It's the story about Gallaudet University. And Train Goes Sorry is deaf speak for, I'm sorry, the train was here, it went, you didn't hear it. Tough. It's a different language and a different culture. So I got interested in that through reading. Exploration, physics, science, oh my God. I don't know what I would have done without books and movies and music and dice and decaf.
You know, a lot of your songs, you talk about how they came to you organically. You saw this interracial couple on a bus and you wrote Society's Child, you read about debutantes in the New York Times, you wrote At 17, you broke up with Claire, you wrote Jessie. You know, how do you sometimes get from a moment or a vision or an idea to a song?
Well, it's not usually a very straight line. Jessie, for instance, I had the idea and the chorus melody when I was 13. I was in camp. But I didn't know how to write it until I was, actually before I broke up with Claire, till I was 20 or 21, 20 probably. Some songs take a long time, and I think one of the things you learn as you grow as a writer is to let things take their time. Because when you're an artist of any sort, there's always that sense that time is gaining on you, and you're not going to have enough time. I think if you live long enough, you realize that no, you won't, and that's just what it is. You get done what you can done. But when you're a kid, you want to get all of it done. And so most of the songwriters I've known track their songs when they're young by how many did I write this year. And then you get a little older, you track them by how many did I write this year that I'm happy with. And if that's one song that you're really happy with, that's great. My Tennessee Hills took almost 13 years because I had the chorus, but I couldn't figure out what to do with it until I looked at it one day and thought, it's a George Jones song. I'll write it like that. I'm Still Standing took about 9 years because I wanted to get it right. It's a blessing and a curse wanting to get things right, because you can not see the forest for the trees, and then there you are hammering away at something that should have been done 2 years before and was perfectly fine, but here you are trying to perfect it. And I think another thing you learn as you get older is there is no perfect. So it came out in 93 or 92, whenever Breaking Silence came out. It was because Irva Shuvade told me to. You know, Irva sat me down and she said, don't do it now. She sat me down for lunch and asked what my plans were, and I said, well, I'm living with this woman, Pat, and I know it's forever, so I'm going to just be open about it. And she said, do me a favor, don't do that. And to hear that from Irva was really strange. And she said, wait until your album comes out so you can maximize the press. And I said, but I don't want people to think of me as a gay writer. I don't want that to be the first thing they think. And she said, it won't be. Think about all those kids who have no role model. And she said to me, what was your role model as a kid when you knew you were gay? And I said, oh my God, the well of loneliness. And I so wanted not to be part of that. Or Bebo Brinker. Or, you know, everybody dies and nobody has a happy life. And she said, so wouldn't it be great if some gay kid could go to their parent with your new album and say, remember your favorite artist at 17? she's gay and so am I. And I thought that was really an amazing gift from her to me. Yeah.
What do you think has changed the most for LGBTQ artists since the early 90s, and what challenges remain?
But we can't be hospitalized or lobotomized because of it. That's a big step. I think when the American Psychiatric Association said that homosexuality, quote unquote, was not an illness, that was a huge step. What's changed? So much has changed. I mean, Provincetown has changed. You know, I see it visibly because we can gather in other places. We don't have to only gather in mafia bars like Stonewall. We can be in wherever, not only Key West and P-Town, but other cities. And we can be out and we can be okay. Pride, Pride alone is a huge change. And the fact that we survived the initial backlash is, I think, testament to the strength of we as a community. Because there was that initial huge backlash, as there is now beginning to be a backlash. And yet we survive. The government paints over rainbows in the street in Florida, and people put rainbows in their driveways. We figure ways around it. I mean, that's part of the cool of being part of a cool community. Definitely, yeah.
You know, your song At 17 gave voice to so many who felt unseen when it came out in 1975. And when the Mean Girls movie came out in 2004, there was a character named Janis Ian. Your song was in it. And I know there's a connection to you and Saturday Night Live and Tina Fey. So you were the first singer on SNL.
Me and Billy Preston.
Yes, and Billy. Did Tina tell you she was gonna?
No.
What was that like?
So I got calls from a couple of friends congratulating me on my new career in acting. Because they'd seen the ads for the movie and they assumed it was me. And then I can't talk about it for legal reasons. Suffice to say, no, she forgot to tell me. And apparently Lauren had told her she needed to, and she was too nervous to tell me. And now I have to have lawyers who shut down Paramount, Mean Girls, Janis Ian, Bratz figures. So for me, it's great that she paid homage to my name. Had I known, I would have taken some different steps to protect it.
Right. I have a niece who's 21, and when she found out I was interviewing you, she thought it was the character.
Mean Girls.
Movie.
I know. Poor Lizzie. Poor Lizzie. She's got to be so tired of hearing this as seen in Mean Girls.
Did it bring you some new young fans?
I think it did. I used to get people showing up in my shows expecting to see her, which was always very disconcerting for them because you can imagine we don't really look alike. You know, it's things have a way of backfiring sometimes. And then at the end, they used At 17 in the movie. So it brought At 17 to a whole other audience and a whole other generation. And that was great. So I can't really complain about it. I can just sit back and go, dang, whatever. And leave it there, right?
You've written songs, science fiction, essays, and autobiography. Is there a difference in the creative process when you're writing prose versus music?
I don't mean this to sound flippant. I know what I'm doing with music. I've been doing music since I was 2.5. I've been writing songs since I was 12. That's, 62 years? I have 62 years of experience as a songwriter. I have like 10 minutes of experience as a prose writer. So writing for The Advocate when I was doing that was a great learning experience because I had to turn in 1,000 words a month, plus or minus 2. And that really puts you on your game because you can't waste anything. On the other hand, when I was writing for Performing Songwriter, Lydia gave me whatever amount of space I wanted. I mean, we ran a 3 magazine article on how to be a boss. So I try to find a middle ground. Writing science fiction, I'll never be the prose writer that I am a songwriter. I just won't, because there's no way I'll ever have the time to put in that I put in as a songwriter or a guitarist. But I love writing things like Conversations with My Wife, which I do on Facebook, and I have a sort of conversation with Pat that appalls her. And it leaps off of something real like you loaded the dishwasher wrong, or I didn't tell you to put the soap there. You know, stuff that all of us deal with every day in relationships. But then it usually goes a little bit farther than that. Yeah, I enjoy prose writing, and I think now that I can't sing, too, I'm a little bit nervous about songwriting, because I don't know what will happen when I try to do that. Plus, I don't mean to sound arrogant, I really do not. Essentially, I'm an extremely humble person. Sometimes. But I've written 600 songs and 300 of them are still in circulation. So I knew when I looked at the song list for what I was going to put on Light at the End of the Line, my last album, I knew that I had pretty much said everything I wanted to say, and there really wasn't anywhere else for me to go with it. You become too facile, you know? It becomes not too easy, because it's never easy, but the voyage of discovery is the fun part. It's like the journey rather than the end. And I'd always rather be on the journey, because I'm not that interested in the end. Really competitive people are interested in the end. And I'm usually that person that has to be reminded to stand in the front. So for me, songwriting, I love songwriting. I'll do it again with somebody like Jess at some point, Jess Cleary. But I'm more interested in prose now because I haven't done that.
When we spoke, you called your father the silent hero, and you said he had started writing a book, how to teach kids to play music and opera, and I know you took this year off to really promote the documentary, but next year, is that one of your priorities to write?
Oh man, I have so many projects, it's just worrisome. My father, you know, we started, my wife and I started a foundation, the Pearl Foundation. We gave away $1.25 million in college scholarships for returning students, which is what my mother did. I would say that half of that money came from merchandise sales and from fans contributing, so not just me. And then my mother in the film is kind of honored. My father, though, gave me melody. My father gave me the piano. And my father came, unfortunately, from a generation that believed that classical music was really the important one. And so this great gift for melody, or the operetta that he was working on, which is just gorgeous, he set those aside in favor of trying to write symphonies in the classical mode. And we argued about it most of my life. But he died without finishing them. So one of the things in my world is, yes, finish the operetta, make it a musical. Yes, finish the book on how to teach children music, because I think it's really important. My dad understood that everybody should have music and everybody should have art, because not everybody can do sports, but everybody can do the arts. Whether you like it or not, it doesn't matter. Whether it ever goes anywhere, doesn't matter. Every kid can do that. And he was really tested by a kid with Down syndrome in a school he was teaching at, and they formed a little school orchestra of 6th graders down to 3rd grade. And he insisted this kid be in the orchestra. And he had a lot of blowback from it. A lot of people didn't want the kid in the orchestra. He can't play, he can't be on time. And my dad said, if he knocks the wood blocks, it's not going to make any difference to the piece. It's going to make a huge difference to him. So the kid stayed in. And that's the philosophy my dad had that I would like to impart working on his work. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
How do you want your legacy to be remembered?
I don't care, I'll be dead.
That's okay.
I know it's a question that I get asked a lot because I'm old. You know, how do you want to be remembered? I don't care, I'll be dead. When am I going to try and be Charlie Kirk, you know, and have all this nonsense? I mean, seriously? No, if you do good works, then the work lives on. I don't care.
You donated your entire collection of awards and papers and letters to Brea College.
You did?
Why did you choose that school?
So Berea is a Christian school in Kentucky, or Christian formed school in Kentucky, which would on the surface appear not to have a lot to do with me. But the school is all about service. And it was the first integrated college in the country. When the state of Kentucky passed a law saying black students and white students couldn't study in the same room, Berea built a building for the black students so that they could study the same things. They have preserved a part of Appalachian culture that I think is very important to music. And every single student there is on a full scholarship. So you can get a college education and your family don't have to spend money. Now, you have to be really on the poverty end of the scale to get in. I wouldn't have qualified. My dad was a teacher. He was earning a decent living. But the kids who go there, I've been on a lot of college campuses, and once in a while you'll see a group that are interested, but mostly undergraduates are there because they're supposed to be there. Their parents want them there, it's a stepping stone to whatever. These kids are there to change their lives. And we started endowing a scholarship at Berea probably 20 years ago. And when it came time to figure out where to put my archives, not just the music stuff, I mean, they've got all my legal documents, they've got all my financial documents, everything from my grandparents' entry into America on. I thought, I want them to go somewhere where A, it will be open to the public, anybody can go make an appointment now and go through the archives. B, it will be used. Varda is donating the B-roll from the film to the students there to use. I've donated the unfinished songs in my song notebooks for them to use. We're creating another world for the students that will carry on a legacy of being an artist in service to the community. So that's why, long story.
We're going to turn in a second to questions from the audience. You know, you had a lot of mentors when you were younger. Have you been mentoring other young artists?
I guess. I mean, I'm not very good one-on-one. I'm way too harsh about work. You know, it's like I expect everybody else to have as much experience and talent as I have. And that's not a good combination when you're trying to teach somebody. But I think with someone like Jess, or Kai in a different way, because I learn as much from those people as I teach them, I bring a completely different thing to the table. So I guess so. I do master classes. I did one yesterday. That's a type of mentoring. I think basically the songs mentor, you know? I mean, a song like At 17 teaches people more than I could ever teach them. So, yeah.
Some of your donations, you just said some unfinished songs. What if some student wanted to finish the song?
How cool is that?
That would be okay.
Yeah, so one of the things that happens when you're me is you're constantly revising a will, right? Please have your wills done, because if it's not done, the government has the right to take half. You don't want to leave this government half of what you own. Even if all you own is a shirt, do not let them cut it in half and take that half away with you. So one of the questions is, how do you be responsible to the community that gave your work room in their lives? Made a space for you and your work in their lives. I mean, my work's in people's living rooms, it's in their bedrooms, it's in their kitchens, you know. I said to someone, we are with them from cradle to grave. And that's a wonderful thing, but also a responsibility. So, to me, part of it is that when I die, society's child will go into the public domain. And there will be certain restrictions, like you can't use it for advertising, but people will be able to build on the song, record it, make it new. I think that's a really important thing. Tom Lehrer has left all of his records in the public domain. The Berea students, at some point, in a couple of years, the archivists and I are going to sit down and pick 20 or 30 unfinished songs and just give them to the music students and say, have at it. And I think that's great, because anytime somebody else takes on your work, they go at a right angle to where you would have been. I know that when I took on the Woody Guthrie song and it turned into I Hear You Sing Again, that is not what Woody would have written. but it became a really beautiful song. So they'll be able to do that, and the only restriction is that the money they make from it, if they make money, has to go back to the Berea scholarships.
That's right.
Yeah, so it all becomes this great circle. Or that's what you shoot for anyway.
I actually rewrote the lyrics to At 17.
Okay, no. You're not a Berea student.
No, I'm not. And I sang it because it was about Women's Week and you coming here, but I am not a singer, so I didn't see the light of day.
I'll tell you what though, when people say they're not a singer, so people say to me, what's your favorite version of At 17? And I have two. Celine Dion, because I think she just did a bang-up job without stealing any of my phrasing. And an author named Judy Jantz, J.A. Jantz, who's a pretty famous mystery writer. Judy is 6'4", I think. A dear friend of mine who I met because somebody at the library where I was restocking their science fiction shelves told me that she closed her book readings with it. And I watched her, and she's a terrible singer. I mean, she's awful. She cannot stay on key to save her life. She always says that I told her she sings in the key of G, which is very true. But when she sings it, there is so much heart that it moves me to tears every time. So you don't have to be a singer to sing. And I wish people would lose that Dancing with the Stars attitude, because it's not just, I happen to be good at this. Most people are not. Doesn't mean they shouldn't do this in their homes.
Well, it doesn't stop me from singing.
Well, I'm going to stop now.
I wasn't going to post it.
Thank you. Totally appreciate that. Thank you.
If you hadn't become a musician, you would have been a
archaeologist or etymologist or wow, so many things. A prose writer or a manager or possibly an accountant because I like numbers a lot, or a physicist, or maybe a chef, or a chess player. I don't know, I like a lot of different things.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great. Is there a song, yours or someone else's, that you put on when you want to dance around the house?
Oh yeah, I put on Stayin' Alive, Peachy song. That was our COVID song.
All right, is there one of your songs you never get tired of playing?
I don't play any of them. I mean, oh, you mean like actually singing?
Yours.
Me
Yeah,
playing?
over the years.
Or playing my record?
When you actually play the music over the years.
No, I'm fortunate that I'm usually solo, which has meant that I can pick and choose whatever I want from my catalog. And I haven't had the kind of hit record career where I've got to do 30 songs that were hits like ABBA. I mean, man, I went to a concert of theirs thinking I didn't know any of their songs. I knew every song. And a lot of artists get trapped in that and resent it. I'm lucky that the songs of mine that have become popular, like At 17, or Stars, or Jessie, are songs that I really loved singing. I mean, just looking out at an audience singing something like At 17, it's miraculous. I mean, from this end of the stage, it's miraculous to watch people in Japan or Holland mouthing the words back, to realize that you have really entered into their lives to the point where they might not have heard it for 20 years, and they still know all the words. That's pretty miraculous. Yeah, there's not one that there's songs of mine that I don't like, but fortunately I haven't had to sing them.
All right, we're going to ask some of these questions that some people asked. Have you ever considered making an all-instrumental record of your music?
Yes, I just don't have time. Yes. My friend Jeff and I are working right now on a collaborations album, collaborations with everybody from Mel Torme to Baez, and hopefully we'll get our act together and get it out next year. I've been with the film all year, so I haven't really had time to do anything else.
I mean, I know Mel Torme, Cher, Bette Midler, so many people have sung your songs.
I know, it's great.
Was there anyone you were most excited to have sung your song?
No, everybody. I mean, it's such a cliche. It's such an honor when another artist does your song, because especially somebody like Bette. I mean, I know Bette, and I know that she goes through about 300 songs before she picks her album. So to make the cut, that's pretty amazing.
Who has been one of the folks you most enjoyed collaborating with?
As a writer or a singer or a player or a recording artist, that's a tough one. Pick one. Pick one. I love writing with Kai Fleming. I love writing with Jess Leary. I love writing with Lance Cowan. I loved playing with Richie Havens when I occasionally got a chance to play behind him. That was awesome. Chick Corea, an amazing experience to duet with him. Torme, just because he was Mel Torme. He was one of the great songwriters of our time. You know, Chestnuts Roasting in an Open Fire. God, what a song. Baez, just because she's nice and she's fun, and I've known her since I was 16 and she's always been great to me. We had a really good time doing 1 in a Million because she learned the words that afternoon, and so she was standing there holding the sheet of paper, and I watched as the paper got further and further. Yeah, I haven't had many bad experiences collaborating. Again, you know, I've been really lucky in the artists I've worked with. There was one writer that I worked with in Nashville early on, and we both said that we had a headache and went home. The polite way of saying this isn't working. But, you know, I've tried to write for years with my friend Gary Nicholson, who's a great writer, and we just always say, man, this is not working. Let's go to lunch. You learn when to let go, too. I think that's really important, when to let go. When it's just not working.
Do you consider yourself a poet?
No. No, poetry is a completely different art. Dylan Thomas is a poet. T.S. Eliot is a poet. Jane Hirschfield is a poet. Mary Oliver is a poet. No, I'm a songwriter. And when people call me a poet, I always feel like somehow that's taking away from what it is to be a songwriter. Because to be a songwriter is just as hard and just as complicated. And so why not let me call myself a songwriter and be as proud of it as I would if I were a poet? So I don't really like being called a poet.
What can make you smile?
Pat. I know. But it's true. I mean, she's one of the funnier people I know. She's great.
What can make you feel proud?
Oh, interesting. I actually was going to say Pat again because I flipped back to, she went back to school at 48 and became an attorney at 51. And I think one of the proudest moments of my life, because I went on the road for 3 years constantly so she could graduate debt free. And so that was a really proud moment when she got her degree. It makes me proud. Watching another artist do great work, that makes me really proud because I'm proud of my profession then. Yeah, that's a good question.
Can you describe your children's book and what age is it for?
So that book, unfortunately, is mired in legalese because it was done for a Dutch company that I won't go into, but these wonderful illustrators, Ingrid and Dieter, agreed to illustrate my book, and it was the first book that they'd ever done that they didn't write, called The Tiny Mouse. But because of restrictions legally, we can't get the company that owns their rights to allow us to put it out in the United States again. Which is unfortunate because it's a really wonderful little book. It's a mouse that goes to sea because he's bored with his life. And he goes to sea and he gets seasick and he throws up all over the captain's table. And then he's caught and he can't believe that he's caught with all the silverware in his pockets. And my niece, who was a teacher, we sent her she was teaching at a pretty poor school in southern Texas. And we sent her 30 of the books, so each first grader can go home with their own hardback book. And she put on The Tiny Mouse, and each kid had to be something. And so it was one kid's turn to get on stage and be part of The Tiny Mouse, and he went, and she said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm throwing up, just like the book." That was great.
That's awesome. Kids are great. Is there any music for other artists and any movies you've got coming up?
Yes, but I don't track them. I have the luxury of having the final say on whether my work is used in film or TV, but once I've given the okay, I pretty much file it and forget it. That sounds pretty arrogant, but I do. It's hard for me to keep track sometimes.
Do you have any thoughts or words of wisdom for the future?
Don't. I don't know. You know, It's such a strange time. And yet, I look at Andrew Jackson and I think we've been here before. And I think how many people, like on my Facebook page, I am on Facebook because I'm old. And on my Facebook page, somebody posted today, are you going to have us post all our pictures at the demonstrations tomorrow? And I went, oh, I forgot I did that last time. And so I set up a No Kings, post your picture of your demonstration here. I think the best thing people can, like me, can do who have a public voice is to remind people that there are other people who feel like that. The same is coming out. When somebody comes out, especially in the 70s and 80s, when we were so closeted, it gave every other gay person courage. And I think that's part of our job as humans right now, is to give each other courage. And also to remember that it doesn't all rest on us. You know, we get to have a day off. We don't have to be submerged in the news 24/7 to the point where we can't sleep, which is something people have been doing. You get to take a day off because there's millions of people who are going to carry that weight for that day. So you get to occasionally take some slack. I'm sorry, I totally lost the original question.
Words for the future.
Yeah, words for the future. Have courage. Show other people you have courage. Because bravery is not something you're born with. You step out and you become brave. And in that moment, you become a hero. I don't think you're born a hero. I certainly was society's child. I never expected it to be looked at as heroic. And yet, I did what I thought was right. And that became heroic. Do what you think is right, so long as it agrees with me.
We're going to open it up to some questions from the audience, if anyone has any questions. You know, we know everybody has a story about when they first heard at 17 or Society's Child, so please just keep it to the question as opposed to, I love you, Janis. We all do. But if you have any questions, we do have microphones.
And know that if you go to janisian.com and go to the contact page, my email is at the bottom. So if you do have a very long involved story about how you first heard me on a train headed south on the 3rd of November, the sky is overcast and it changed your life, please feel free to email me. If you have a question, raise your hand and hopefully somebody with a microphone will come find you. And if you have no questions, we can all go to Crown and Anchor or something.
Go have a steak.
Yeah. Go have a steak.
One of the best.
What artists inspire you now, Janis, the current contemporary artists? You have some favorites or some that drive you?
That's a rough one. I like an Irish artist called Tosheen. I liked her even before she cut my song. I like her work a lot. I love Mary Black. Frank Turner is a big favorite in our house. He's on rotation a lot. You know, to be honest, I don't listen to that much music these days. I listen to Billie Holiday and the music that I grew up surrounded by. And because that brings me a love and women's rights and women's power. Had it come out 10 years ago, 20 years ago, when the women's movement was really just very frontal, maybe it would have been different, but I think also people find lines like carve out between her legs so she can't come very uncomfortable. And that makes it difficult for other singers to pick it up. I was uncomfortable writing it, and yet I felt like that was the only line that I could put there. I don't know, it's on the last album, I would listen to it. You can probably find it, yeah, you can find it for free on YouTube. Why can't you find it for free on YouTube? Anybody else?
Well, okay.
Okay. Whatever. Take one for the team, girl.
Okay. I'm interested in like what your first guitar was and what you feel about playing 12 strings, specifically a Rickenbacker. Do you ever want to really do one of those?
So I owned the first Eddie Van Halen Music Man in LA when we are talking about like guitars that you wish you had. I've been very fortunate to know some great luthiers in my life. And I bought guitars from them when they were $2,500 instead of $15,000. I grew up on my dad's Martin, this is a very specific area, so forgive me for getting specific. To my mind, you're either a Martin person or you're a Gibson person if you are an acoustic guitarist, because the necks are so different. But my favorite current guitar is a crappy Gibson that I bought off eBay when eBay first opened, and you could actually buy things safely. And I spent $300 on it, and it plays great. I prototyped 12 strings for Ovation. I've played the Rickenbackers. I've owned a lot of guitars and sold a lot of guitars and given away more than I've sold. And the main thing that I tell people about guitars is play what feels good. Don't get sucked in by the name, because some of the best Fender Strats I've heard are Japanese knockoffs. And Jess Leary the other night was playing a great guitar that is, I believe, under $1,000, and just plug it in, sounds great. My signature guitars, I think, are around $12,500, which is a huge amount of money that I don't think anybody but a professional should be spending, because it's a huge amount of money. But then again, they're all handmade. You know, so when somebody when an entire company only makes like 300 guitars a year, and every one passes through the luthier's hands before it goes, then I guess it's worth that. I don't know. I've always had to buy mine, but for one that they gave me finally. Yeah, guitars are, you know, Vince Gill says, it's a disease. I mean, you fall in love with guitars and that's the end of it. You own way too many, you trade way too many, and you love playing them all. But don't be trapped if you're buying a guitar or buying one for someone. Don't be trapped into, oh, it's a Martin, or oh, it's a Fender. That doesn't matter now, because the Japanese bought up all the good wood in Brazil in the 60s and 70s for Yamaha. True story. All that good rosewood went. So people are doing really interesting things with woods like koa or Florida maple, stuff like that. And we're just now beginning to explore that. That being said, I do have a 58 Martin 0018 that I treasure. I'll have to pry it from my cold, dead hands. Yes, down here.
Thank you. I am a part of a group, a community of coming out late, women coming out late. I came out at 54 years old. I was like, holy shit. And it's, for all of the women, I say, it's a crazy roller coaster ride to come out late. Do you have any advice for anybody who comes out late in life? Especially these days.
I think it's hard when you have children. It's hard when you have an ex who may be male. That children complicate everything, because usually you had them when you were with a male, and therefore you were together forever. And that's rough. And I think it's hard when you discover that about yourself late in life, because most of the people you know don't understand how that could happen and take you by surprise. But surprises are good, most of the time. So my advice would be the same advice I would give anybody coming out or thinking of coming out. Just do it. Get it done. Because half the time, what you're scared of and what you're worried about is not real. It's just stuff that you built up in your head. And the other half the time, those people didn't like you in the first place.
To men, and the kids have been great. They're very accepting.
That's great. That's great. You know, you hear both. I read a thing the other day, somebody said, you knew me at version 1.0. I'm 2.15 now. Get used to it. And it's like, yeah. You know, people like their comfort zones. I know as a writer, I like my comfort zone. I like writing Janis Ian, you know. I know how to do that. It's very safe for me to do that. I can write those songs. That's why I co-write, so that it gets me out of my comfort zone. Those people just need to be woken up. Anybody else? Speaking. Your microphone is off. She broke it.
Hello. Speaking of songwriting, do you typically hear the lyric and find music, or or is there anything typical
It's
about
just,
it?
no, there's nothing typical about it for me. I'm one of those lucky people who can see the notation in my head. So if I'm thinking of a melody, I'm seeing it on a piano, I'm seeing it on a staff line, I'm seeing it on a guitar in my head, and I'm hearing it on all of those. But sometimes music comes first, words come later. Sometimes words come first, or a title, or a first line. Music comes later. Sometimes they both come together, it just depends. The thing about when they both come together that's so annoying is they both come together and you go, my God, that's an amazing 2 lines. And then there's the rest of the song to finish. It's like second verses, you know? I hate second verses. Although, if you are a songwriter, an interesting thing to do when you're writing is, once you've finished your second verse, make it your first verse. That's a really interesting trick, and it'll take you right out of your comfort zone. And also make sure your second verse is as good as your first verse. Because second verse is the time when you go, oh hell, I'm almost done. What the heck? And songwriter there. There's somebody down somewhere.
Oh,
Yes.
excuse me?
Oh, hello.
Sorry.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Hello, no, I'm just ignoring you. Okay, go for it.
First of all, thank you. This is terrific and great advice, and I too loved A Wrinkle in Time when I first read it. The film brought out the fact that you had encounters with Nina Simone and Janis Joplin, and I wondered if you could share maybe some of the experiences that you had with those 2 amazing artists. Thank you.
I met Janis at the Berkeley Folk Festival, the first big festival I got to do, and we became friends, but everybody in the village then was running around with everybody. And I think I was, like I said, kind of the mascot. She and I would get together and go clothes shopping. I bought my Grammy outfit with her at a store that we both liked, run by a little Indian woman who made things out of sari material. She was very good to me. I wish that I had been older and been able to be better to her. And I feel the same way about Nina. Nina was crazy in the biological sense. She was not easy to be friends with. When she was wonderful, she was astonishing. And when she was not wonderful, she was equally astonishing. If you haven't seen the film Whatever Happened, Miss Simone, I would really suggest it just because there are very few films that capture an artist's charisma on stage the way that film captures hers. The snippets that they show of her on stage are just amazing. I mean, I love Nina Simone so much that one of the songs on my last album is Nina and is about Nina. Directly about Nina. And I tried to make it about anybody else. I tried and tried and tried, and it just wanted to be about Nina. And it's one of the more brutally honest songs I think I've ever written about someone. I knew Nina from the time I was 15 until she died. Yeah. And she made it very difficult to be her friend. And that's unfortunate because by the time she reached out to me again toward the end, she reached out through a third party, and I said she would need to call me herself because I was so fed up with it. Had I understood then what I know now, I would have gone ahead and met with her. And I think in retrospect, one of the things I learned from that is that very often people are scared to reach out to you, especially if they see you in a position of power or a position where they feel like you're above them somehow. So it's up to you to make the first step and to reach out to them. And that becomes very difficult when somebody is as difficult as Nina. I mean, Nina would wave guns around, and it was really scary. Yeah. I don't know what else I can tell you.
Thank you.
Just that I loved her, you know. Loved her as an artist. And there's not a lot of artists that I love that deeply.
You mentioned a couple of times about writing prose. Do you have a book coming out?
So, first of all, they've given me the rights back to my autobiography, which is great. So we're going to put that back out, hopefully by Christmas. I just finished the final edits. And then, yeah, my next year is going to be my writing year. I'll be 75 next year, you know. I mean, I'm tired of running around. And I have a novel I want to finish. I have a conversations with my wife I want to finish. I want to find out if I can ever write a short story that I'm happy with, which is doubtful since I am always comparing with Flannery O'Connor and Ray Bradbury. But, you know, at least write something that doesn't nauseate me. And I want to take some time off. I want to take some time when I'm not having to think so much about business and things like that. The search for a new business manager, the search for a lawyer. I keep outliving them, you know, it's a problem. I will tell you a great Odetta story, and this is after Odetta died. I loved Odetta. I loved Odetta so much. She was like the extra parent that I always wanted, even though there was only about 15 years between us. And she loved me, and she always called me her little love. She was a thread that ran through my life. My wife and I were on vacation in a fairly remote spot at the time called Alligator Point. It's right on the Gulf, and at the time there were only about 20 houses. We would go for Thanksgiving week, and we might see 4 or 5 people. There was nobody there. And we were staying in a place about 100 feet from the Gulf. And I woke up one morning, and I walked into the living room, and I said, "Odetta's dead, isn't she?" And Pat said, "She is, I just saw it on the news." And I said to Pat, "If there is any justice in this world, there will be a sign." Now, we love a thing called a moon snail. They're these beautiful little snails, snail shells. I mean, we don't take them live. And we had been looking for moon snails all week. And depending on the tides, they're there or not. There were none. We went downstairs after coffee, we walked to the water's edge, and there were 6 perfect moon snails lined up, one after the other. And I said, "That's it. That's Odetta talking to me." That's when I feel like there is something so much bigger than myself. In my little world of Janis Ian, songwriter, there's just something amazing out there that I don't know what name you give it or where you put it, but moments like that remind me that there is magic in the world and that there are miracles in the world, whether you want to assign it to spirituality or religion or whatever. To me, it's an ongoing miracle to be alive and to have the friendship of people like that.
Good note to end on. We're going to be in the back. Janice will be signing CDs, selling merchandise. I'll have my books in the back as well, but thank you so much.
Thank you all for taking the time.